This is Craig Nash from Local Lodge 456 of Victoria, British Columbia, interviewing Paul Whitworth, and it's the 20th day of January 2015. And what would you like to talk about today, Paul?
Well, I'd like to put on the record an experience I had helping, on behalf of Local 456, helping one of our sister locals, Local 219 in Victoria, with the organizing and first contract strike they were having at a local car dealer. There's not too many people know of my experiences. I've never made a full report to the lodge about it. I've only told a couple of people. One of them was my brother, who was a union member himself, albeit of the Pipe Fitters and Plumbers Union, but he's since passed away, and I realized that time is marching on. Perhaps we should make this part of the lodge history and add it to the record. It is part of the union movement.
Sounds interesting.
Well, it began after I had retired. I'd been retired for about 5 years when the mechanics and partsmen at Speedway Motors in Victoria went on strike for a first contract, trying to get organized by Local 219. And because there was a split in the vote, they could only get just about or just over half the mechanics to vote for the union, and they were the ones that went out and were picketing. It was difficult for them to keep the picket line up. They were just you wanted to be able to spell people off or let them have a break. And there was 2 gates that had to be guarded. They did have an entranceway off the main street, Victoria Douglas Street, and there was a second side entrance off a short dead-end street which ran down beside the dealership.
About how many members were available to man the picket lines?
I'm just taking a quick count as we speak, and my guess would be, counting the president of Local 219, and sometimes we had a retired business agent themselves come along. Art Glass did come out to give a hand at times. I think we had about 6 to maybe 8 at the most, on the picket line. So I volunteered to come down, and I walked the line with the members. The strike lasted from about the beginning of November, approximately, to just after New Year's, when there was finally a ratification vote taken, and the vote did fail.
In what year?
This was in late 1999. We just went into the 2000 year, and then the strike ended about first week of January, or first weekend almost. At first everything was, I suppose everybody was full of vim and vigor, but the strikers themselves never really lost heart. They kept going. There was I guess an odd drop off here and there from some of the younger members who just didn't understand the labor movement. So we might have lost 1, maybe 2 of those to it. But I was there, shall say, just to fill in, and because I was a member of 456 from some time past, I had a Local 456 jacket, which at the time was a bright blue with the union logo on it, not unlike the ones we have now, which are the midnight blue, almost black. And of all the people on the line, because I was already a member, I had a jacket, and both our business agents, past and present, Art Glass and our present business agent, they both had those bright blue jackets. And so we became rather distinctive. We were a little bit easy for the management to spy when they saw these bright blue jackets. And it had a significance that I did not realize until much later. But anyway, when I first started with them, we were picketing almost all the hours that the business was open. They were open till about 6 p.m. in the evening, and so we were starting off in the morning and then continuing right through past dark by that time of the year. And first I went in and with them fairly solid for the first couple of weeks. And then one day I had my life overtook me, and I had to do something downtown, perhaps go to the dentist or some other errand I had to take care of. So I took a day off, and I found, much to my dismay, that while I had been away that day, they'd had a big scuffle on the line. Somebody came out and I guess started some trash talk or something, and it got into a shoving match. And when I got back the next day, I found out about this, and I went, oh well, it coincidence. Oh, being overtaken by a jet, so we'll just hold for a sec here. I then went downtown, did my errand. There was a fight on the line when I got back the next day. So I thought it was just a one-off. That wouldn't particularly matter, but I continued picketing, and then I was missing another day. I think I just had something else that needed doing, and lo and behold, there'd been another big ruckus on the line. So I then began to realize, well, when I'm not there, somebody starts a ruckus. I didn't think I had anything to do with the prevention or the precipitation of them, but I thought, well, if that's what it takes, I'll show up every day, which I continued to do. And I didn't interact with anyone. There was people working behind the line the whole time. As I said, they had only just over half of the people vote in favor of the union, and only just over half going on strike. So the rest of the staff were going in and out and passing through the line doing their whatever it is they did. So I would just give them an even-eyed stare as they went through. I was more just being careful, just keeping an eye on them to see what they were doing. And so they couldn't take me by surprise. And I found that they sort of gave this very averted their eyes and sort of scuttled through like little mice when you turn the light on in the room, which had a later significance, I realized. So I kept with it and kept going, and we had certain little you learned a lot just by manning the line on human nature. I found that the toughest people to get to honor the line were actually like the college graduates and things. They always seem to think, well, I'm earning a degree, I'll never have to get my hands dirty like these wallahs. What do I care about them? And but there was other people that, let's say, anyone with an industrial background, held it solid. In one particular case, I was picketing the side gate one afternoon, and this Cadillac, of all things, draws up, and I thought, well, we can't stop them going in, so we just, went over to the car, and the driver rolled the window down, and I just, in my best diplomatic voice, says, "Oh, these are the mechanics and partsmen. They're on strike for a first contract. Do you have any questions?" We couldn't stop the guy going in, but I just wanted to see what his reaction would be, and he looked out at me and said, "A picket line? I'm not going through any picket line." I said, I phoned the dealer owner, and he said we could come down. I was going to buy a car for my son. He said, "I'm not going in there. I'm going to phone him when I get home and tell him what he can do with his car." And the Cadillac turned around, backed out, and away it went, which was a major surprise to me, a very pleasant surprise even. So that's the way it continued. So there was no further ruckuses on the line, and we would actually be there until they closed, and the staff would be coming out, leaving, including his own adult daughter who was working there. I guess she was working as his bookkeeper or receptionist or whatever it is she did, I don't know. And so we would be there, and we would actually, watch everybody leave, and then we would drop the line and go home. We had a few little instances, like one time, for some reason, the local police force got called there. I don't think it had anything to do with us, but they went in perhaps on some other matter. I don't know if there'd been a vandalism or a theft or something. But there was two female police officers, and they lingered in there quite a long time. And they were actually looking at like little trinkets you could get in the showcase. Your official, it was a Volkswagen dealer, your Volkswagen key fob or your little miniature Volkswagen, thing to add to the keychain. And eventually we got curious as to what was going on, because we could see them from down the line, and the president of Local 219 was there, and he just picked up his cell phone. He phoned into the non-emergency line at the Saanich Police Force, which was only a couple, 3 blocks away, and said, why are your people seem to be in there and they seem to be shopping? Well, it was quite bemusing to watch this because he'd hardly turned the phone off when all of a sudden you could see one of them pick up their cell phone quite quickly, and then bing, they were out of the building like it was on fire.
Do you,
So,
do you remember the name of the president of Local 219?
Larry, I'll have to think of what his last name was, but it'll come to me in a little while. Like I say, this is why we're recording this now. People's memories are fading. We're all fading. But yeah, well, his first name was Larry. I'll probably blurt it out in the middle of another sentence later in the interview.
All right.
The one thing that did happen that did put things into a larger context for me was as part when dealing with the vagaries of the public acceptance or rejection of our cause, was I started going down there when it was getting to be late in the day. I'd driven down in my car at the time and parked it somewhere where I thought was out of sight. And I thought, well, no, rather than have somebody finally figure out which one it is, so I would begin to have tire trouble when I went to get back in it, I started riding the bus down. I actually had bought a bus pass, so I could come and go quite freely, and I could catch the bus at my house, ride down, get off at the end of that block on the main street, and then just walk back up the block. The bus drivers were giving us solid support throughout. Sometimes I said, the bus driver said, well, did I want to be dropped off, just across? I said, it doesn't matter, I have to cross the street anyway, drop me at the stop, I'll use the crosswalk. But they were giving us, 100% support. And then, so one afternoon I'd ridden the bus down and got off, crossed the street, was walking up the block, and the dealership owner was down at the end of the driveway, sort of nattering at the guys, trying to get one of those little sweetheart deals cooked up that management usually tries to pull with the union. And so I was just walking up the block, watching this, thinking, well, I wonder what he's got to say that's complimentary, relevant, or true. When he turned, looked at me, and then suddenly he just turned on his heel and literally fled up the driveway. And I, watched this with, great neutrality. So I got to the line, saw who the picket captain was. It was Eddie Lai. I'm not quite sure what Eddie's last name is, but he was a Singapore by birth. He actually had family in Singapore. And I turned to Eddie and I said, what's wrong with him? He went up the driveway like his backside was on fire. He said, we saw you coming. I said, me? What's so different about me? He said, the blue coat. I said, what about it in the blue coat? He said, well, only you and the two business agents, had the blue coat on, and you. And he doesn't know who you are. He thinks you're the one that the local sends for, and that Grand Lodge sends.
I see.
I thought, well, yeah, I'm not. That's an error, but I'm certainly it's not in my purview to go and correct his errors. If that's the error he wants to believe, well, then that's fine. So now I knew why everybody cut such a wide swath around the picket line when I was there, and why they wouldn't look at me. They were almost afraid to get eye contact lest I give them the evil eye and they, fall comatose upon the pavement. And I thought, well, that's not what we do, but if he thinks that's what we do, he's welcome to have his mistake for as long as it takes to get this settled. But then, in retrospect, as I was guarding, I usually go and guard the side gate because it was dark down there. That little street wasn't lit, and it was a bit of a creepy place to be, so you didn't want a picket by himself down there in case he was accidentally hit by a car leaving the property. So I would always go down there and shore up the picket that was there. And one of the people exiting the property would be his adult daughter leaving and going home for the night. And I watched this, and that actually angered me. Like, here was the guy who was so afraid of me and whatever it is he thought I did, would not even face me in broad daylight on a busy public street, but was prepared to send his adult daughter out a lonely picket line or picket gate on a darkened street by herself. And I thought, you jerk. Is that as little you think even of your own family? Like, what do you think of your workers if you think so little of your own family? And that particularly a reason that always seemed to stick with me.
And did that change you? That incident changed your opinion about the employer?
If anything, it made it worse. I knew he'd had a reputation for being flaky. Like even amongst the other dealers in town, very few of them would have anything to do with him if they could avoid it. There was no I'll send a customer to you because they didn't want to buy what I bought, what I had, or things like that. They would do anything they could to deal him out of any deals, and I guess that was the reason why. But it certainly didn't worsen my opinion. Well, it didn't destroy any illusions I had about him. It just made them worse.
I see. And did you hear from other sources then about this dealer, other than the employees, why he was, or what he was like?
Yes, I actually had a personal friend who was a Volkswagen mechanic, and it was one of those he'd bought this. He had a dealership downtown, but he was ostensibly combining it with the dealership which was out here on the north end of the city on Douglas Street. He'd actually been in downtown Victoria, and he actually essentially closed up that dealership and brought it out to the to the north end of town location, and he was quite brutal in who he fired. He had a great house cleaning where he got rid of all the people he didn't like, regardless of their abilities or skills, and he left a lot of the mechanics with a bad taste in their mouth at that treatment. This personal friend went on to open his own business. It's had a roaring success, taking work away from him all these years.
I wonder if this behavior to his employees affected their desire to form a labor union.
That his attitude was one of the leading reasons they sought out the local 219 and wanted to sign up with them. We carried on this the picket line until eventually we did have to have a ratification vote. I believe there was a time frame involved, and the time frame did run out, and we had to vote it one way or the other. And unfortunately, a couple of the younger mechanics there, shall we say, didn't hold up. Their fortitude did not hold up, and in one case, one of them even, shall we say, got lost in quotation marks to go and take the ratification vote, which had to be observed at a branch of the Labour Relations office, which was a little further out of town into the Lake Hill area of Victoria. He was supposed to go down there and cast his vote, and when we saw him later, he said, "Oh, I couldn't find the place," and the business agent that was there said he knew where to go, he just didn't want to do it. And we did in fact lose the final ratification vote, and then there was a settlement negotiated where the mechanics that had gone out on strike were given a severance settlement, and they all moved on.
So were they would you think that they were welcome to come back, or welcome to not come back?
They would be more than welcome to not come back. Most of them said, "I'd sooner change lines of work than go back." One of them did open his own shop out of his backyard and said he was getting more than enough. Another one got a job with my friend who was running his own independent shop. He's there to this day. And I saw him just a couple of weeks ago before coming down here for this course. And what happened to a couple of the others, I don't know, but they did move on and get work elsewhere, and that was the end of that. And eventually the dealership itself was sold out, so even the owner there was, shall we say, eventually displaced. But I think he was about ready to. There was a lot of difficulty, shall we say, with the business. the friend that I knew, Eddie, I keep calling him Eddie Lai or Lau. I know it's wrong, but it's the best way I can have of speaking, referring to him now, is, let's say he came from Singapore, and there was old money in the family in Singapore, and he had actually been given the okay from his family to say, if you want to buy this business, go ahead. And he'd actually had auditors come in to check out the books as part of his making his offer, and the auditors said to him confidentially, walk away. It's a money pit. It's in huge debt. Don't bother.
Was this before the organizing activity that occurred at the?
Yes, this was in the months preceding to it.
I see. And was there long term after that anything you can add to the story or Local 219?
No, I guess I'd say time moved on. Eventually, even Local 219 was unable to continue conducting its affairs, and their members were folded into Local 456. Like I say, these people that were not even technically members of 219, they had not yet achieved certification at the workplace, so they would have had no contact at that time with the other members of 219. I suppose I was the one link between them and an active union local.
Would these members become members of 456 then, or?
No, they would have been
not?
members of 219 then, because it was the Automotive Lodge. They were certified in 1966 as their own lodge for automotive work, and then but eventually when they all joined into 456. So if those that were still there, still employed at that dealership, should it have gone through, they would have come into 456.
Yes, well, I can't think. Should I ask you anything else? I can't think of anything.
No, I guess my rationale for doing this is that it was one of those little things that 456 were not really all that aware of, because it was something I was doing, as a almost like a, personal assistance to the, to Ron Jordan, the then business agent, and to Art Glass, the previous business agent, with whom I'd always had, good goings on when I was active in the union, and also it was something for the labor movement. I felt I was doing a bit of a give back, which I felt was more than due to do so, and because it was one of those things that did not get to the point of being, shall we say, official, because the certification never went through. The union at either lodge level really didn't get any record done. There would be very little correspondence between ourselves and Grand Lodge about it. And so I thought this was just one of those little episodes, the missing things that can fall off the table and get lost through the years. And saying that, I think even a couple of the people that were involved in that have even passed away by now. So I would have thought that it would be time to at least put it on the record while I still remember it, because see, none of those people that were on the picket line with me came into the union, so they're in no position to pass along their thoughts and memories. Well,
thanks a lot for adding your recollections to the history of our local and district, Paul.
Okay, yeah, like I say, coming here to Grand Lodge to take this lodge history project, suddenly it brought this into a little sharper focus for me, thinking, when people have passed on, how does their story get told? There's no letters, no photographs, no nothing of this. There's just my personal recollections, so I'm, sort of released from my burden for at least putting on the record.
Shall we call that a wrap?
Oh, I think so. I guess we can give this, and then Tracy can have a go at transcribe or putting it onto the. This is the first entry for 456's submission to the Labour Archives, and there you go. Sorry, it couldn't be something more positive and more row.
And this is Craig Nash
and Paul Whitworth, members of Local 456 in Victoria. and this is one for the records. Good day.